All praise, glory, and honor most certainly due to the Most High, the patriarchs Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Peace to you in the name of Jesus. This is your brother Lineage of Israel of the house of faith. And I count it truly a blessing each and every time that I can come before you to preach the word of God. Never do I count it as a light thing. So I'm here. I'm super late, but I'm here. Got in not too long ago. My apologies for tuning in. And with that, brothers and sisters, I want to get right into today's message. Again, forgive my tardiness. I'm just getting in not too long ago. And then I said I would deal with this, but I was kind of apprehensive, quite frankly, to deal with it because the understanding of it is so lacking. That's the only way I can put it in regard to interracial marriages, and for our people in particular, there's so much disdain for Europeans in particular. And when you look at our history, it's not like it's not warranted, quite frankly, collectively, because the truth is that regardless of people talking about it being a post-racial time, when you really, if you're a student of history, you see what our people have suffered in this country in particular. You can understand why there's so much disdain, and you have a lot of groups who claim to be Israelites saying that, Europeans are can't be saved, and the devil itself. Now, yeah, you can be the child of the devil, but you are not the devil. The devil or Satan is an angel, brothers and sisters. But so with that, and on the flip side, you have whites, who are racists, who talk about interracial marriage as if they're the people of the book. They're simply not the people of the book historically. They're not the people of the book in any way, shape, or form, but they have been exalted because this is the time of the Gentile to make it seem like you are less than human. And so when you're talking about interracial marriage, it's not like as if the topic exists within a vacuum, because there's so much that's associated with interracial marriage historically. It's a charged topic. And so I am, and because our understanding of the topic is lacking, you can tell by the questions that I asked, I'm going to present to you today some things you should think about in regard to interracial marriage, okay? Because quite frankly, we haven't a clue about what this Bible is talking about, and then we don't understand oftentimes the culture and the history of the people which we claim to belong to. Okay, so now I want to start off in Deuteronomy the 7th chapter, because here in Deuteronomy the 7th chapter is where many people will go to say that the Bible speaks against same-sex marriage. Excuse me. Interracial marriage. It absolutely speaks against homosexuality. Forgive me. Been a long day. Interracial marriage is what I'm dealing with. So this is Deuteronomy 7th chapter. And we're going to pick it up at verse 1. Deuteronomy 7 and verse 1. Now it says, when the Lord thy God shall bring thee into the land whither thou goest to possess it, and hast cast out many nations before thee, the Hittites and the Girgashites and the Amorites and the Kenites and the Perizzites and the Hivites and the Jebusites, 7 nations greater and mightier than thou. Okay, so now first of all, this is written by Moses, and this is when the children of Israel are still in the wilderness, brothers and sisters, and it is told that hey, what's going to take place with these 7 nations that occupy this land, and their cup of iniquity has reached its brim, and so they are judged and cast out and replaced by God's people. And you know this was going to happen. Just hold your finger here. Just learning something in relation to this. In Genesis the 15th chapter, in verse 13, it says, and he said unto Abram, know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. And also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge, and afterwards shall they come out with great substance. Now, This is before Israel was a nation. This is in the days of Abraham. And it says, now shall go to thy fathers in peace. Thou shalt be buried in the good old age. So he wasn't going to see what was going to happen to his seed. He was going to die. Then it says something. But in the fourth generation, they shall come hither again. For the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet full. Now, when you read in Deuteronomy, the 7th chapter, that's it's no coincidence that the Amorites are mentioned here. Why? Because, brothers and sisters, there's time for judgment for them. Okay. And when Israel didn't do what they were supposed to do, they were cast out of the land. Okay. So it says in verse 2, and when the Lord thy God shall deliver them before thee. So now these nations that are stronger than you, if you just look at them by number, perhaps, but see, when you got God on your side, it doesn't matter what anybody else is doing. David and Goliath shows you that. But it says, when the Lord thy God shall deliver thee from them before thee, thou shalt smite them and utterly destroy them. Okay. Now listen, people will come here and say, it's talking about interracial marriage because of this. It says, thou shalt make no covenant with them, nor show mercy unto them. And in verse 3, it says, neither shalt thou make marriages unto them. Thy daughter thou shalt not give unto his son, nor his daughter shalt thou take unto thy son. So somebody would say, well, you can't marry somebody from another nation. But if we look at this specifically, because it also said, if that's the case, it also said kill these people. So that means you're supposed to kill people from another nation. What is he saying here? He's saying do not make marriages with these particular people. And why does he say that? Is it because I've heard people say, see, these people are less than because they don't have melanin. I'm talking about when they talk about Europeans, you see this particularly with some Israelites on the street will say, hey, they don't have melanin. You less than human. And I want to make it clear, this is not me saying that Europeans have not, as a whole, collectively, have not been an enemy to our people. That's not historically accurate. History tells us from since we gotten here up until the present day, that is the case. Okay, so collectively, if you deny that, you denying history, or you're either lying or you're ignorant of history. Okay, but it says here, neither shalt thou make marriages with them. Thy daughter thou shalt not give unto his son, nor his daughter shalt thou take unto thy son. Was this because of their ethnicity per se? He tells you specifically why this is. It has nothing to do with somebody's skin tone, right? It says, for they will turn away thy son from following me, that they may serve other gods. So will the anger of the Lord be kindled against you and destroy thee suddenly. See, it was about you dealing with somebody who's going to take you from the service of God and the worship of the true and living God of Israel. That was the problem. Okay. Why? Because these other nations, these people from these other nations are serving other gods. And in there, and when you read the Torah, you see all these things he's telling you not to do. And he tells you, because the people that are in the land right now are doing these things. So it's just like when you were a child, okay, you're in school and you with a particular group, and your parent is telling you, hey, you can't hang out with these people. Why? Because they are bad influence, right? They get into trouble. You end up in the principal's office. Where's this all? At first you was a square, you the model student, and now you get in trouble. What's going on? Well, you hang around with Nook and Junebug and Tyrone, they getting you in trouble, right? So it is if you marrying somebody of another nation in this regard. Why? Is it because of their nationhood per se? No, rather he tells you why. He says, he didn't say because they don't have enough melanin. He said, because they will turn away thy son from following me, that they may serve other gods. So when the anger of the Lord be kindled against you and destroy these suddenly. I'm going to be honest with you, brothers and sisters. It can't just be about color, because there's a lot of people who are Israel by blood that you shouldn't marry. Why? Because spiritually they worship other gods. So it said, but thus shall ye deal with them, ye shall destroy their altars. See, if this the case, we need to be destroying altars of these other people right now. Even say in this case, smite them and utterly destroy them. So now if you taking this, you have to read things in context. It said, but thus shall ye deal with them, ye shall destroy their altars and break down their images and cut down their groves and burn their graven images with fire. He didn't want you dealing with this in any way, shape, or form. So he said, destroy all the things related to false worship and deal with these people. And that was judgment upon them from God. Deal with these people who are dealing in this false worship. Why? He says, for thou art a holy people, you sanctified and set apart. Right? So you should not go and deal with some other nations. Why? Because you are a holy people, a people set apart. Because these other nations are going to be dealing with other gods. So it said, for thou art an holy people unto the Lord thy God. The Lord thy God hath chosen thee to be a special people unto himself. This is the apple of his eye. This is talking about Israel. Only you have I known of all the nations of the earth. He manifested himself unto one people. And he did want these one people to be sanctified. He says, so he says, that God hath chosen thee to be a special people unto himself above all people that are upon the face of the earth. Okay? So now, and he delivered them, stretched out hand, fury poured out on eagle's wings. So now he chose these particular people and he didn't want them to go astray. And that again is in regard to dealing with these people, other people who are dealing with false gods. And let's go to 2 Kings just to show you an example of this. This is 2 Kings. I'm at 1 Kings, excuse me. 1 Kings, the 11th chapter. Because here we see the wisest king, King Solomon, who the Lord appeared unto. Let's see what he did because he was dealing with these other women, right? It said, but King Solomon loved many strange women. Now, strange means foreign women. You know, there's even a term now, you know, a lot of young people, you got to look foreign. See, a part of it, and then too, this is a very charged topic because, for example, you even have people who, because they have been taught, we as a people in particular, the so-called Negro, who are the true Israelites the Bible speaks of, we have been taught that we are less than human. We have been taught to hate ourselves. W.B. Du Bois talked about a double consciousness, to where you see yourself with your eyes, but then you look at yourself from the eyes of a people who look at you with basically pity and disdain, right? So that's how we view ourselves. That's why so much hatred amongst ourselves, so much killing amongst ourselves. And at the same time, so much uplifting of people who a lot of times we don't admit, but we think subconsciously that they are better than us because we have been brainwashed. But it said, but King Solomon loved many strange women together with the daughter of Pharaoh, women of the Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Zidonians, and Hittites. These are some of the nations that we read about. He said, don't make marriages with them, for they'll turn you away from their God. And they did this to Solomon. It said that the nations concerning which the Lord said unto the children of Israel, ye shall not go into them, neither shall they come in unto you, for surely they will turn away your heart after their God. Solomon clave unto these in love. See, again, it's about your worship of God. You dealing with somebody. Listen, you dealing with somebody in something as intimate as a marriage. It's just like if you got friends and they constantly smoking, constantly doing drugs, constantly doing these things, right? That are wrong. Eventually, you keep hanging with them, you're gonna start doing some of those things. So you talking about the person that's laying in your bosom, and then they go, I gotta get up and pray to my God. They praying to a false God. They dealing in some kind of way, a false God. And you end up dealing with that. It says, so it says, other nations concerning, verse 2, 1 Kings 11:2, other nations concerning which the Lord said unto the children of Israel, you shall not go into them, neither shall they come in unto you, for surely they will turn away your heart after their God. Solomon clave or clung, that's what that means, clave unto these in love. And he has 700 wives, princes, and 300 concubines, and his wives turned away his heart. Now what? Now see, again, we look at things in a modern Western world, right? We have a lens that is westernized. So they would say, see, he had too many wives. First of all, one thing the Bible does say is the king should not multiply wives unto himself, right? So that's what he did. So that's like a harem. When you have 1,000 wives, it wasn't about you having more than one wife. See, we talking about marriage. Deal with that while we're here, because he told David, you basically through his prophet, the prophet, he said, man, you didn't committed adultery. I would have gave you these wives if you had one. Why'd you take this man's wife? Right? But Western society would tell you that a man is only supposed to have one wife. That's not biblical. A man can have one wife, that's fine. A man can have no wife, that's fine. A man can have several wives, according to the Bible. But see, just like this is a charge, when I'm talking about specifically interracial man, that's charged too. See, and because a lot of things are going on, and we're looking at the things from what's going on right now, from our perspective, for what's happened to us in our lives. We personalize a lot of things, when in actuality, the culture of the people of the book was very different, brothers and sisters. And we're going to see that. But it says, for it came to pass when Solomon was old that his wives turned away his heart after other gods, just what God said. So is it about, even again, a woman, an Israelite woman could have did that, right? When you look at Saul trying to give him a call to David, so she'll be a snare unto him, right? When you look at what Job's wife said to him, now you can't say in totality that was, that was the nature of their relationship. But in that particular instance, when she said, dost thou still return that integrity, curse God and die? I mean, that doesn't seem right. So again, it goes beyond your lineage. So it says, for it came to pass when Solomon was old that his wives turned away his heart after other gods. And his heart was not perfect with the Lord his God, as was the heart of David his father. For Solomon went after Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Zidonians, and after Milcom, the abomination of the Ammonites. And Solomon did evil in the sight of the Lord, and went not fully after the Lord as did his father. Then did Solomon build an high place for Chemosh, the abomination of Moab, in the hill that is before Jerusalem, and for Molech, the abomination of the children of Ammon. And likewise did he for all his strange wives, right, or foreign wives, which burnt incense and sacrificed unto their gods. And what was the consequence for this? For him going astray? It said, and the Lord was angry with Solomon because his heart was turned from the Lord God of Israel, which had appeared unto him twice. Okay. Then he says something in verse 10. He says, and had commanded him concerning this thing that he should not go after other gods, but he kept not that which the Lord commanded. Wherefore the Lord said unto Solomon, for as much as this is done of thee, and thou hast not kept my covenant and my statutes, which I have commanded thee, I will surely rend the kingdom from thee and will give it to thy servant. And then the kingdom split into two, the north and the south. Judah remains in the south, and in the north they retain the name of Israel. And that's what happened. And Israel as a whole did this. Let's look at another example. Let's look in the book of Ezra. Let's go to Ezra, the 9th chapter. Ezra 9, I'm going to pick it up at verse 1. Because, brothers and sisters, you do have one thing. One thing about this, brothers and sisters, is that to be set apart as a people, you can't deal with other people in every type of way. It's good. You can respect people. You can live peaceably with all people. But at the same time, some of people's cultures and customs and religious worship, you can't deal with. Like I said, I went to, for example, if somebody's like, I went to my dad's brother's funeral, he was a Catholic, and all kind of customs going on in there. Everybody's standing, I'm not doing that. Why? Because I'm not dealing with this. Say what you mean. But that's see, you did, if you didn't, now let's say you marry somebody, and a lot of the people in there, they were of another nation, but you marry somebody that's dealing in that, because a lot of times religion goes right along with people's where they from. Right? You go to some places, the vast majority of people are Muslim. You go to another place, you might be dealing with a bunch of Hindus. Right? So you're gonna marry this woman, she feeding Buddha every night, or however often they feed little fat man. And now you dealing in that. So now you got a false god. You might be dealing in somewhere, you have a false god in your house, trying to appease your wife. But Ezra 9:1, it said, and Israel should not do this. It says, now when these things were done, the princes came to me saying, the people of Israel and the priests and the Levites have not separated themselves from the people of the lands. So they have not been set apart from these other nations. It says, doing according to their abominations. Even it says, for they have taken up their daughters for themselves and for their sons, so that the holy seed have mingled themselves with the people of those lands. Yea, the hand of the princes and rulers have been chief in this trespass. Okay, so now you, the people that's supposed to be holy or sanctified or set apart, they've been dealing with these other nations. It said, and it says the princes and rulers have been chief in this trespass. They're the main ones, right? And let me say something real quick. The irony of this is when you look at a lot of the groups that profess, this, right? I've seen people yelling at people on the street. One thing that's ironic about this is that they will show you a chart of who Israel is, and the chart is a lie. And they will use that chart, and the people's other chart, some of the people other chart couldn't possibly be Israel. And they've used a pseudo history, if you will, to substantiate a false historical account to substantiate it, right? And it's totally false. But those people supposed to be Israel, they're not Israel. And so it's okay to marry them, but they're not even Israel. See, that's another thing. And then another thing is when you look at, well, I don't even want to do it. Never mind. Let me go. I'm gonna go to another place. Go to Malachi. I'm going to Malachi. We don't really have a clue, brothers and sisters, and we need to get one quick. This is Malachi. I'm picking up at chapter 2, Malachi chapter 2 and verse 10, because he said that, they've been chief in this trespass. But it was about them turning away from the service of God. This is Malachi 2. I'm going to pick it up at verse 10. It says, have we not all one Father? Have not one God created us? Why do we deal treacherously every man against brother by profaning the covenant of our fathers? So now it's basically a proclamation of Israel's sins. And then he says something about what Israel has done. He says, Judah have dealt treacherously, and an abomination is committed in Israel and in Jerusalem. For Judah have profaned the holiness of the Lord. See, we were supposed to remain holy as a people. Israel was supposed to remain holy as a people. It said, Judah have profaned the holiness of the Lord, which he loved. And what did they do? They have married the daughter of a strange God. Now, who is this daughter of a strange God? This foreign woman that's dealing with this false God. And in doing so, you profane the holiness of the Lord. Right? Because that was the issue. You dealing with a false God. Let's go to 2 Corinthians. Then I'm going to go back to the Old Testament just to show you, brothers and sisters, what this is about. 2 Corinthians, the 6th chapter. I'm going to pick it up at verse 14. Here Paul says something. The same Paul that wrote a letter, 2 epistles to Timothy, who was Greek. Why I say he was Greek? Because his mother was a Judean and his father was a Greek. That makes him Greek. But it says here in verse 14, it says, be ye not unequally yoked together with unbelievers. See, that's the issue. You dealing with somebody who's not serving your God. These people, the other nations, are not serving the true and living God. But at the same time, you could be dealing with somebody who is of the same nation as you, who's an Israelite, and they not dealing with the true and living God. You see, that wouldn't be a good choice at all. I wanted to read something here. That's why I stopped in the middle. I wanted to read something here. Give me 1 second. I want to read something here. This is in Ruth, real quick. This is Ruth chapter 1. And it says, well, I'll read that later. Let me finish. I'll go there. But let me finish 2 Corinthians 6 and 14. It says, but be ye not unequally yoked together with unbelievers. For what fellowship have righteousness with unrighteousness, and what communion have light with darkness? See, that's the issue with these other nations. They're not worshiping the same God. If they're not worshiping the same God as you, you're going to have serious problems. It's a contradiction. Okay? Now let's go to, matter of fact, let's go to Genesis. Let's go to Genesis 41. Matter of fact, my fault. I'm sorry. I apologize. Let's go to Ruth 1. I'm going to just read it here because that's why I said go earlier. Ruth 1. And now here in Ruth 1, it says something in verse 2. It says in the name, verse 1 and 1. It said, now it came to pass in the days when the judges ruled. So as the day of the judges, it said that there was a famine in the land, and a certain man of Bethlehem, Judah, went to sojourn in the country of Moab. He and his wife and his 2 sons. And the name of the man was Elimelech, and the name of his wife Naomi, and the name of his 2 sons Mahlon and Chilion, Ephrathites of Bethlehem, Judah. And they came into the country of Moab and continued there. And Elimelech's Naomi's husband died, and she was left and her 2 sons. And they took them wives of the women of Moab. Now these men took them wives of Moab. The name of the one was Orpah, and the name of the other Ruth. And they dwelled there about 10 years. Okay, now these 2 sons died. If you know the story, Naomi was going to return to Judah, and one of the sister-in-law, one of his her daughter-in-laws left, but the other one didn't. And just did hear the mindset of this one. She said in verse 16, and Ruth said, entreat me not to leave thee, or to return from following after thee. For whither thou goest, I will go, and where thou lodgest, I will lodge. Thy people shall be my people, and thy God, my God. Now you gotta, and peace to everybody's listening. Peace to you, brothers and sisters. Now you have whole nother situation. So now you got somebody who's willing to deal with the true and living God, just like those of the mixed multitude who left with Israel. See, there's a commonwealth there. See, that's a different type of mindset. So let me get this straight. You got two options. Hypothetically speaking, you got two options. You got one who's an Israelite who worships Satan, and you got one who is of another nation that's diligently serving the true and living God. Let's go to Genesis, because when you really look at it, brothers and sisters, the nation in part was built in large part, actually, it built by Israelites marrying women of other nations. This is Genesis, the 41st chapter. I'm going to pick it up at verse 45. All right, so you know Jacob, you have Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Jacob had 12 sons by 4 women, right, and 1 daughter, but this lineage is 12 tribes of Israel, because again, it's through the father, through the father. So now it says in Genesis 41 and verse 45, and Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zaphnath-Paneah, and he gave him to wife Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On. And Joseph went out over all the land of Egypt. Okay, so now Joseph is a governor, and he's married to who? He's married to an Egyptian woman. And now let's get down a little bit, because he has seed. And it says in verse 50, and unto Joseph were born 2 sons before the years of famine came, which Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, bare unto him. And Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh. For God said, he hath made me forget all my toil and all my father's house. The name of the second called he Ephraim. For God had caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. Now, wait a minute. Ephraim and Manasseh came from Joseph, but that seed was implanted in an Egyptian soil, in the Egyptian woman. Let's go to Genesis 38. See, you know, Ephraim and Manasseh became great, but look at their lineage. This is Genesis, the 38th chapter. And we're going to pick it up in verse 7. Genesis 38 and verse. Give me 1 second. Let's see. Because when you look at, let's go to Genesis 4. Let's go to Genesis 46. I'll come back. Genesis 46. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. So Genesis 46. And verse 10. Genesis 46 and verse 10. It says, and the sons of Simeon, Jemuel, and Jamin, and Ohad, and Joachim, and Zohar, and Shaul, the son of a Canaanitish woman. So now he got his wife, Simeon, or He had children by who? A Canaanite. Well, why am I reading this? Because, brothers and sisters, when you're talking about Israel, brothers and sisters, in part was established by these 12 sons and these women who were not Israelites. How could they be? See, so I'm just giving you things to consider. This not Genesis. I said Genesis 38 and 7. I meant Genesis 38 and 6. Genesis 38 and verse 6. So now we just saw Joseph, who had an Egyptian wife. We saw Simeon, who had children by a Canaanitish woman. Then we see Judah in verse 6. And Judah took a wife for his firstborn. Hey, hold on. Is this right? Give me 1 second. This is actually verse 2. And Judah saw there a daughter of a certain Canaanite whose name was Shaul, and he took her and went in unto her. So now, and she conceived and bare a son, and he called his name See, they were taking women, brothers and sisters, from these other nations. Okay. Give me 1 second. There's something else I wanted to read, but let me go to Numbers 12. Give me 1 second. Numbers 12. Numbers 12. I'm gonna pick it up. Yeah, am I reading it right? I keep looking at this. Forgive me, brothers and sisters. I'm talking to myself. Okay. But Numbers 12 and verse 1. It says, and Miriam and Aaron spake against Moses because of the Ethiopian woman whom he had married. Now you talking about one who got, it says he not like my others. I showed him some stuff in a dream and a vision. I talked to Moses face to face. Like a man talked to his friend. He's communed directly with God. This is Moses, but it said Miriam and Aaron spake against Moses because of the Ethiopian woman whom he had married. For he had married an Ethiopian woman, and he married a woman from Midian prior to that. And don't say she died and you don't know or anything like that. So now, wait a minute. He married this Cushite woman. And then it says, and they said, hath the Lord indeed spoken only by Moses? Hath he not spoken also by us? And the Lord heard it. Now the man Moses is very meek. That's like similarity between him and the Messiah. Above all the men which were upon the face of the earth. And the Lord spake suddenly unto Moses and unto Aaron and unto Miriam came out. He three unto the tabernacle of the congregation, and they three came out. So now he calls these three out. And he says, and the Lord came down in the pillar of the cloud and stood in the door of the tabernacle and called Aaron and Miriam, and they both came forth. And he said, hear now my words. If there be a prophet among you, I, the Lord, will make myself known unto him in a vision and will speak unto him in a dream. My servant Moses is not so, who is faithful in all mine house. Now, if he's faithful in all mine house, this is the Lord talking about. He's faithful in all mine house. He said, with him will I speak mouth to mouth, even apparently, and not in dark speeches, and the similitude of the Lord shall he behold. Wherefore then were ye not afraid to speak against my servant Moses? And the angel of the Lord was kindled against him, and he departed. And the little cloud departed off the tabernacle, and behold, Miriam became leprous, white as snow. And Aaron looked upon Miriam, and behold, she was leprous. It didn't say anything about him being leprous because he married an Ethiopian woman. She spoke against Moses, and she turned leprous. It didn't say, yeah, he married this Ethiopian woman. He's gonna get leprosy. It wasn't even mentioned. Why? These are questions you need to ask yourself. So again, when you look at Deuteronomy 7, that's specific, okay, to a particular group of peoples or 7 nations at a particular time. And when you look at the reason why he told them this, it had nothing to do with ethnicity. At least that was not said. Is because they would turn you from serving the true and living God. You see the example with Solomon, who went after with these strange women from these nations, and he started dealing in this. He building stuff for these false gods to appease these wives. You see Israel, who was not sanctified or set apart, because the rulers and the princes were a chief in that transgression. They were dealing in these false with these women, and therefore these women are dealing with false worship. You shouldn't be engaged in that. Malachi, we read, hey, you dealing with a strange, you have profaned holiness of the Lord by dealing with these strange women, these daughters of these false gods. We read in the writings of Paul about not being unequally yoked with unbelievers. And that is the issue. Even in Deuteronomy 7, that was the issue. In Numbers 12, we just read, that was the issue with 1 Kings 11, right? Then we read in Ruth 1, how this one who was not an Israelite said, hold on, I'm going to, hey, your God is my God. And when you look at the lineage, brothers and sisters, for that one, because I didn't read it, you have to ask yourself these questions, brothers and sisters. Who came out of that lineage? Who came out of that lineage? Okay. This is I'm in Rule 4. So because they were dealing with the Levirate law, well, again, you have to understand the culture of the people. That was a law of which if a man died he was married and didn't have seed, a man child, then his brother, in this case, next to kin, was supposed to take that widow, marry him. It didn't say if he had a wife already, he couldn't do it. That's what I'm saying. These are cultural things. These are things we so far removed that we don't have a clue. It's called a Levirate law, and then he took that wife and raised up seed in that man's name, so his name not blotted out of Israel. Okay. So now this is what's happening here with Boaz. Okay, and who came out of this seed? Right. Eventually, it says in verse 17, and the women of her neighbors gave it a name, saying, "There's a son born to Naomi." Okay, but we understand that was the woman who was the mother-in-law. Okay, and Ruth was the daughter-in-law. So it says, and they called his name Obed. He is the father of Jesse, the father of David. Okay, so now that's basically eventually who came out of that lineage was David, right? And we know all the way who else is in that lineage. Joseph, who was married to Miriam or Mary, right? Or Joseph. He was in the earthly lineage. The Messiah came through that. That's why he's called the son of David, the son of David. But this is a woman who was not an Israelite, though. We read in Genesis 41, we read in Genesis 46, we reading how these men are taking women. If this nation, Israel, was built, because again, it's not a nation is built with men. It's not built with his name, but I'm just making a point. It was built in large part dealing with other nations. Okay. So when it says add some clarity, these are just some things to think about. I know this is a very charged topic, but these are some things we need to think about before we start spewing off at the mouth about what people talk about when it comes to interracial marriage. Because quite frankly, there's been a mischaracterization of what the scriptures are actually saying. Okay, and it is ultimately about who's going to serve the true and living God. And then you have some cultural things. Don't get me wrong, you have cultural things, and then you have, that's a whole nother topic, if you will. People's culture, and the situation that we are in as a people. I give you an example. When you look at our women in particular, they are the least likely to be married. They are the least likely of all other women to be married. And our men are amongst the most likely to marry outside of their race. And so it gets, it's a charged topic. So I wanted to deal with it specifically from what the scriptures are actually saying and give you some things to think about. And with that, brothers and sisters, I want to remind you that we're at the House of Faith meet every Sabbath, 1 p.m. Central Standard Time at 5925 West 25th Avenue in Gary, Indiana. We invite you to come out and worship with us, where you get the uncut, unadulterated word of God. You can check us out in the United area right here on the Israel Teach YouTube channel. What else? What else do I want to say? Also at www.israelteach.org. You can check us out live streaming there. If you've been edified through the ministry, you can leave donations. We don't get paid. The donations go directly to the ministry. You can do that at the Israel Teach at israelteach.org, the website. I just like to say peace and God bless to all those who are listening. And so it's my prayer that you were edified. Thank you for the encouragement. And I praise the Most High for the understanding. For the understanding, because we really want to get this thing right. We got a chance to get it right. We can do the best that we can, but we want to deal with what the word is saying. We can't make it say something that it's not saying. And I think that's a huge, huge problem. We trying to make the word of God say something, or you see that a lot. The people trying to make the word of God say something that is really not saying. You don't want to add, you don't want to take away, just take it for what it is. And with that, again, I thank you all. May the Most High bless you in your understanding of his word. And our Lord willing, I will see you on Wednesday night.